Ah, all right. Now we're on. Now we're on. I apologize. Got so caught up in the music and didn't realize that there was no sound. So let me know if there's sound now. Should be sound now. Should be no problem with the sound now. Give me some indication in the chat. Let me know. Um, can you hear what I'm saying? Okay, now we're in business. So thank you, Cancer Free. All right. So as I was saying, I am Greg Brinkley, the Disability Yoda, your on-point disability advisor and authority, not necessarily in that order. So I just want to say welcome to Yoda Live SSDI Q&A. I'm here to answer your questions about anything related to SSDI. And I'm glad to be here with you on schedule because last month I had to do it on a Friday because I had a pressing appointment. But I'm back on schedule this month, the month of September. Today's September 5th, 2024. And as always, I'm here to help you in your journey to get SSDI, or if you're already on SSDI, if you have questions about being on SSDI. So I just want to first of all check in, see who's on the live stream. If you're here, just let me know what state you're from. You don't need to give me a city unless you want to give me a city. That's fine too. So just let me know where you're coming in from this evening, from far and near, from coast to coast. And as you're doing that, I just want to make it known that I am still in business. I did not have a video last month. I had some issues that arose and had to deal with those, unfortunately. So there will be a video next week on time as usual. So just stay tuned for that. I have had a lot of suggestions for videos. I've had some suggestions on a video dealing with fibromyalgia. That is a very tricky condition in SSDI circles, and you can lump in with fibromyalgia, CFIDs, or chronic fatigue. There's a couple of others that are kind of in that same pocket. They're challenging. I've been getting some feedback on giving some tips on being able to navigate the CDR process and having some insight on that. I may have a video dealing with that. I have some scripts already set to go. Just need to shoot the videos, and if you have suggestions, feel free um, to let me know. You can let me know in here. You can also let me know on the YouTube channel, and let me know when whenever you have a chance to suggest specific topics that you would like for me to address related to SSDI, and I'll be glad to deal with those. I'm spending a lot of time dealing with past work and other work because those are questions that have been coming up. People have been asking about what will it take with the job that I have to get on SSDI. So I've been dealing with those specifically. Um, so give me some topics if you're able, and let me know what your ideas are for videos, future videos. I'd be glad to address them. All right. So we have A Trade 10X. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, A Trade. We also have Red Cloud, who's from Canyon Lake, California. All right. Good to see you, Red Cloud. All right. Main event's back as usual. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you. He's from Winton. He or she is from Winton, Washington. Big One is here. Big One's usually late. He was on time last month. All right, but unfortunately, you came in a little bit late. But I already know you're from Texas. Big One is a faithful Yoda subscriber, and glad to have him on the line tonight. Jessica Walden is from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Welcome, Jessica. Glad to have you on. Sheldon McPherson is from Gainesville, Florida. All right, all the way down in Florida. Welcome, Sheldon. Hope it's a little cooler right now. And we have others I'm sure that are on. And I just want to see who's on right now, just to kind of get an idea. I like to just greet some people, and then I'm looking for some other people that are subscribers, those who are members of my channel. I always make sure I stop and recognize them because they support me. so, um, so before we get started, I see some questions in the chat, so we'll deal with those in a moment. I want to first make sure that I am making it known what I can do for you in your current or future SSDI claim and how you can have me work with you in getting SSDI benefits. So first things first, my YODAA case review is the flagship product of mine. This is where I meet with you. I have a 30-minute call and we unpack everything that you have going on with your conditions. I tell you what I think your chances are of getting SSDI. And that's invaluable because so many people are going to attorneys and other professionals in the disability space, and they don't really have an idea what their chances are. I let you know because I've been on the inside. I've worked on cases. I've trained analysts. I've been dealt with disability fraud several times. I've been a technical expert. I have been not am, but I have been a team leader. I've been a team leader of a very high level team in Social Security. So on the disability side. So I have a wealth of knowledge that I can give when it comes to understanding what you need to be clear about what your chances are. That will make a world of difference. And a number of people, and a lot of people have been having these calls with me, and they say, "Hey, this is worth the money. Actually, it's worth more than what I'm actually getting." What I'm paying, you give me a whole lot more value than what I thought. So if you are interested, go to gregbrinkley.org/YODAA with 2 A's -case-review. And at $97, 30 minutes, I will give you more than any attorney would ever give you when it comes to understanding what your chances are. All right. Also, my book, The 10 Disability Commandments, you can go to gregbrinkley.org/disability. It is a foundational book. I think has been out for about a couple years now. And it's really blessed the lives of a lot of people to get clarity and get understanding of the process and what the inner workings are behind the walls of Social Security disability. So if you're interested, it's only $17. All you have to do is go to gregbrinkley.org/disability, and you can get your copy. It is an ebook. So as soon as you do the transaction, you will have immediate access to that book. Also, I have masterclasses available. gregbrinkley.org/masterclasses. I have masterclasses dealing with SSA forms, the forms that you will typically have to fill out when you apply, and also when you have a pending claim with the DDS, the Disability Determination Service. And this is going to be something that is a game changer for a lot of people. A lot of people have access to master classes. They say, this walks me through everything. I don't even have to think about it because you lay it all out. I go line by line, step by step, question by question, give you tips on how to fill these forms out, what to do, what not to do. And coming soon, very soon, I'm going to have the video of how of the SSDI online application masterclass. I have 2 parts. It's part 1 and part 2. No one has this. No one is ever, not ever, but no one is even going in this direction of showing you what to do in order to file your claim online. I go through every single screen of the application and break it all down for you. So those coming soon, but there are other ones available. Go to gregbrinkley.org/masterclasses. Also, you can join my channel. Just hit the join button on the YouTube channel, on the homepage of my channel, and you can join my channel. You can actually, there should be a link or button underneath here. Hit join, and it'll show you how you can support me in being able to help people like you apply for SSDI and also stay on benefits. And then show a brother some love. Let me get this one off here. Show a brother some love. All right. Um, this is where having Aquila would be available would be helpful. All right, super thanks, super thanks. If you think I'm giving you some great value, you can always donate to the cause. So it will help me continue to do this for people like you and keep this business running so I can reach even more people with this information. All right, I'm done. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's get to these comments. All right, let's get to these questions and get it moving. Cancer free. Welcome, Cancer Free. I think it's my first time having you on YODAA Live, so welcome. I have two comments from you, but I'm not sure exactly which one is the start. Um, so I'll just start reading here. It says, while on the phone with Social Security yesterday, I asked them if they needed my signature for my application, and they stated no, they had my signature on my application. Well, my attorney sent me a letter stating that Social Security in my town needed my signature. Not so true, but I did send a letter back to my attorney, and now I feel kind of weird about this. Well, mail processing place and associates. So it sounds to me, Cancer, that you have been working with an attorney, and the attorney has told you that the application has not been signed by you, and you're really having some reservations about what this is dealing with. So let me see if I can make sense of this based on what you just said. Um, when you file an application for SSDI or Social Security Disability, whether SSDI or SSI, you're required to sign an application. That is a part of the process. You're not going to be able to get your application through without that signature. Online now, you're going to provide an electronic signature. But back in the days of paper cases, you would have to physically sign the application. So if your application is pending at the local Social Security office and they are working on it now, they wouldn't ask you to sign your application because it would have already been signed. The only way I see that not happening is if you did a paper application and for whatever reason you mailed it off or you walked into the office, but you did not provide an application. And what would typically happen is they would look at the application and check for things like your signature. They wouldn't just take it. I think the only other outside chance that could happen is if, like I said, if you mailed it in or if you did it and put it in the Dropbox inside the office without the signature. And they would call you directly. I think there may be a situation where the rep may be the person that they contact, because if you've already completed your fee agreement with that attorney and you've done a 1696, a SSA 1696, which is essentially like a contract agreement that this rep is going to work on your behalf when it comes to your claim. If you have not signed that, then they're not representing you yet. If you have signed it and they've signed it, then the Social Security office may get in contact with them first and let them know, hey, your client has not signed the application, and that's when the attorney would then get in contact with you and potentially let you know that it has not been signed. But that typically doesn't happen very often because one, they're really striving to move people to the online experience, getting them to do the application online. Even most attorneys are likely going to ask you to do that because it's just less hassle. And there's a way to track your claim when you do it online. When you do it by paper, or if you do it in person, there may be, well, if you do it in person, they're probably going to do it online anyway. 'Cause that's what I did when I was at the local Social Security office. I actually help people work on the terminals, the computer terminals, to assist them in doing the online application. So it's no different th- um, in that respect. The only other situation where you would face somebody and do the application is if you had some kind of a disability where you couldn't do it yourself. Do the laptop terminal there in the office, or if they don't have those terminals to allow you to do it in the office. Um, so I think that there may be a potential situation where it could be the attorney asking you to sign it. It's very I think it's gonna be really rare for attorneys to do that because, like I said, they're pushing you to do the application online now because it's no paper involved. It's much easier. It's much more efficient, and you get a process quicker that way. So, my advice to you when it comes to your attorney, I would say first check and make sure that you have entered into an agreement with them. There's two different forms that you would have to complete. One is a fee agreement, and the other one is basically the form saying that this person is going to represent you. Make sure that that's been signed by you and that attorney. Otherwise, that person is not representing you yet, and that's when Social Security would be trying to contact you to make sure that you signed your application. But like I said earlier at the start, if you have completed your application and you have gotten some word from Social Security that they are in possession of your application and they are processing it, then you've signed it because they wouldn't even go that far without the application being signed. So I hope that helps you. If you have a follow-up comment to that to provide some clarity on that, feel free to send another message or comment in the chat because that'll be a continuation of your question, not a different question. All right, let's move on to the next question. So I have Karen White. Karen White, I believe I have not seen her name before on Yoda Live. Welcome, Karen. And here's her question. Her question is, what's my chances of getting SSDI? 58 years old, female with osteoarthritis, hypertension, and type 2 diabetes, working for USPS for 17 years as a carrier. I think that um, your chances may be good, but the thing about it is, and we go through this every month. People will have this question about what your chances are. It's really going to be a challenge for me to figure that out without digging deeper into your situation. There's a lot of factors that play into this, and one of those areas is how your conditions look, what your doctors have said, and the types of diagnoses that you have, which osteoarthritis would be concerning if you're a male carrier. Hypertension, definitely. Type 2 diabetes. Diabetes by itself will not allow you for SSDI or Social Security disability. Diabetes has to have a complication. There's peripheral neuropathy, where you have numbness and tingling in your extremities, your feet, or maybe your hands. Mostly the feet. That's usually where you see it. And there's also peripheral retinopathy, where you're beginning to have problems with your vision. You're starting to get blurry vision. That's a neuropathy retinopathy rather, that is taking place. And in some cases, if it's far gone, it may lead to blindness. There's also end organ damage that can be caused by diabetes. Your liver, your kidneys, your eyes will be another. Your eyes, of course, and your heart. So diabetes has to have a complication as stemming from the diabetes. So it's not a standalone thing where your kidneys have issues and you have no diabetes. The diabetes has to be a precipitating factor. So I'm saying all that to say you're 58 years old, you hit the magic number, you're 55 years old, so the rules are going to start working in your favor. Also, osteoarthritis it could be very debilitating, very severe, uh, in the sense that you will really have some issues with mobility, getting around. But the problem is being able to determine whether what your conditions have and the severity of those conditions will result in you not being able to go back to your past work as a mail carrier. Now, imagine that 5 years, you've been 17 years, you're past the 5 year limit or 5 year threshold rather. They'll go back 5 years. So mail carrier for 5 years, for 17 years rather, that will satisfy you have the one job. So they're looking at that one job to determine whether you can go back to that past work. And if you cannot, then they look at the grid, the medical vocational grid or the MedVoc grid, and they look and see if there's a rule that will allow you to be disabled based on the MedVoc grid rules. Um, but again, I don't have all the information from you, and the best thing that I would be able to recommend is just to get on the YODA case review with me. 30 minutes, I can get into the weeds on what your situation is. We can unpack a lot more, so I can get the full picture of what's happening, and then I can actually give you your chances and see how they look. Just based on what I'm hearing, the chances could be good, but again, I don't want to put something out there without having all the information. So I hope that makes sense to you. All right. Um, okay. I see A Trade has a question. All right, A Trade. Let's see what you have. All right. Retired military, 100% P&T. All right. Applied back in April. Still have not heard literally anything. I thought the SSA's Wounded Warrior program prioritizes vets. Yes, it does. In general, it should. It should prioritize veterans. And the issue here is really about what state you live in and whether the backlog there may be affecting the processing of those wounded warrior cases. There are some states that are working on almost a year on average for a case to be done. That's an average case. A wounded warrior military casualty case should never take that long. But you applied back in April, so your application was in April, and let's just say that it took about a month to get to the DDS where they're actually going to work on the cases. So that was April when you applied. Then May, as hypothetically speaking, it got to the DDS, the Disability Determination Service. So May, June, July, August, September. So that well, it's not even all the way in September yet. So I would say all of May, June, July, August. So that's 120 days right now. Just ballpark it. Um, that's long for a military casualty case, a wounded warrior case. That's supposed to be fast tracked, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about how there may be a backlog in that particular state that's causing that backlog. So, um, so I think there's that consideration. That's really the main consideration because usually those cases should be fast tracked. Now, I will say this: if you did not indicate to Social Security from the start that this is 100% P&T, VA rated person, you're 100% P&T rated. If you did not state that on the application or sometime after the application, then they may not even know that this is an actual fast track claim, that this should be higher priority for them to get it pushed out there quicker than the average case. So that's why I tell people, and you may have seen the video that I did on that, you have to make it plain on the application that you are 100% P&T VA rated. That will be the trigger for them to fast track the case, make it a high priority, and then it would get special attention at the DDS. I would recommend, if you haven't done that, give them a call. Give the DDS a call and let them know my case is still pending. It's been there for 4 months or so, and I'm 100% PET. Is there any indication on the case that this is what my status is from the VA? They may not even know, but what they can do, even at this point right now, if they don't know, they could put a flag on the case to show, hey, this is 100% P&T. This person should be fast tracked, and they can get a move on the case. Now that's theoretical in this situation because since the case has already been worked, in the mindset of that analyst, they're not technically thinking in those terms. And they may not even see that in the records, even though the records will show that you 100% P&T. So you letting them know, if they don't know already, will make a difference. And the examiner is always the examiner should be always be looking for the cases that can get the most um efficiency to get that case moving, to get it out of their caseload because they don't want to have extra cases. So they're looking for those fast track cases. They're looking for the Terry or terminal illness cases. They're looking for the Wounded Warrior Program cases. They're looking for the compassionate allowance cases because they know that when they get what they need, they can get this case out of their caseload quickly, and quicker than the average case. So it's going to be important for you, if you haven't told them that, to let them know. Give them a call, give your examiner a call. Hey, I don't think you know this, but I'm 100% P&T. Is there a way for me to see this case bumped up to high priority so it can get moved quicker? So I think there's that piece. And then also, if you've been waiting that long, I always tell people, look, you need to get in touch with your examiner once you find out it's been assigned to an examiner, and stay in touch. Let them know, hey, I'm willing to cooperate with this case to get it moving faster. Sitting around waiting for a decision is just going to create a lot more stress and anxiety for you. And then you start wondering, well, just like everybody else, they're just taking their own sweet time working on my case. Maybe not. They may be working on their case, and maybe there's some hangups with the case getting records or getting you to go to a CE, a consultative exam, or maybe they're waiting for the case to be reviewed. So there's different factors that play in there. So it's important to know this. Stay in touch with your examiner every 10 days. A call every 10 days just to check in. Hey, I just want to see if you need anything. I just want to see if you are where it is. You could ask them where they are in the case. Don't ask for a decision. They're not going to give that to you. If they better not. That's I never train analysts. Look, you don't give out the decision. Don't you tell them one way or the other. You're just digging a hole for yourself. So, Adrian, I hope that helps you. Give them a call. Give them a call. Find out if they have you as 100% P&T on the claim, and if they don't, let them know. Hey, can we get this fast tracked? Can we get this prioritized? All right. Hope that helps you. Okay, let's move on. All right, Jessica Walden has a question. Hi, Jessica. Here's her question. If I got a second opinion from a different neurosurgeon about my back, will SSA also consider that diagnosis as well? Yeah. Here's the thing. You're going for a second opinion. Clearly, I would say, I will not clearly, but I'd say that there's a great chance that you were not satisfied with the first opinion by the first neurosurgeon, and that does happen. There are people who are filing for disability and then find out in the records, well, they gave me a diagnosis and I didn't even see this record. I had no idea, and I don't think this is correct. I don't think this is accurate. So I'm going to get a second opinion. They get a second opinion, and maybe that doctor will say something that sounds like what they're struggling with. Because keep in mind that there are doctors who misdiagnose. You may not find out until you start getting your records and then find out, hey, I didn't have this going on, but they put this down in my records. So to answer your question, it's always helpful to get a second opinion in certain cases. I think with the neurosurgeon, I think it really would be helpful because depending upon your condition, it could make a difference between a correct diagnosis and an incorrect diagnosis, or more better said, it one diagnosis may be more accurate than the other, and maybe that second neurosurgeon may have caught something that the first one didn't. And as I always say, you have the good, the bad, and the ugly with every workplace. So you have some doctors who don't do their due diligence, and some are very good. So I think for your case, in terms of whether the second opinion will help, it will help. I think evidence is king. Since evidence is king with Social Security disability, any evidence you have is going to be helpful to your case. One way or the other is going to be helpful. When you have two neurosurgeons and their opinions differ, then there has to be somebody that comes in to arbitrate that, and sometimes that's the CE doctor. The CE doctor can deal with that discrepancy between two doctors that are treating you, and they can give their opinion on what really is going on. And they're independent. They're not SSA's doctors. They are independent doctors who are contracted to work on these examinations for Social Security. So most cases they don't have an axe to grind and they don't have a cut card. So I would say yes, it is helpful to get that second neurosurgeon, and they will consider that diagnosis. They will consider every single diagnosis that shows up in your case. That is something that is, just this little more. Um, they will consider every diagnosis, every single piece of information, every piece of medical evidence in your claim. And that's their way of saying, we're going to look at the totality of the evidence, everything, looking at the big picture of what they see. What is the end result? What is our conclusion about your medical condition? So the answer is they will consider that, and they better, or else they'll get reviewed, and that case will get kicked back to them with an error, and they don't want those errors because that has a lot to do with performance appraisals for their job. So they're gonna do their best to get that done and look at the first opinion, the second opinion, the third opinion, all of them. All right. I hope they help. So if you have follow up on that, please let me know in the chat. All right, main event. Always coming up with a good question. All right. Now, is it true that after age 50, they reschedule a CDR after 5 to 7 years? I'm due for one next year, but I'll be 53. Well, it really depends on, that's a great question, main event. What really depends on is your condition and your age. So if you are 53, well, I'm sorry, you'll be 53. Um, at that point, then what it sounds to me is they may have given you a 3-year diary, because that's the likely thing I would say. Is probably that you were given a decision at age 50, which is before 51 and a half. And if you are in general, if you receive a decision and that decision shows that your medical condition is likely to, well, it's possible to improve. Medical improvement isn't possible. That's a 3-year diary. So when you get the 3-year diary before age 51 and a half, then you will come up for CDR in 3 years. The exception to that is if you have what's called a medical improvement not expected diary, which is 7 years at the beginning. So when you first are allowed for SSDI, it's going to be 7 years. It's not going to be 5. You only get 5-year diaries if you have a CDR, and a CDR, based on the work that they do, decides that your benefits should continue. Then they have the option of giving you a 5-year diary or a 7-year diary. Um, so even in the videos I talk about this, about how these mind diaries, the medical improvement not expected diaries, when you are allowed or approved for SSDI, are automatic 7 years automatically, because the coding in the systems will not allow for anything but a 7-year diary when you are applying for the first time. When you come up for CDR, then that 5 to 7 years is in play. So it's not automatic that you're going to get the CDR if you have um, a medical improvement not expected diary. But if you have a medical improvement possible diary, which is the 3-year, then and it's before 51 and a half, age 51 and a half, then you would get the 3-year diary in most cases. Um, and I keep saying 51 and a half because the rules say that when you are 51 and a half or older and you get a decision and you're allowed or approved for SSDI, and your diary matures, is set to mature after age 54 and a half, then you would have likely a 7-year diary. So if you were allowed at age 52, you're likely going to get a 7-year diary. Likely going to get a 7-year diary because your diary will mature after age 54 and a half. So that's kind of the idea. So it's not straight up 3 years or straight up 7 years. It really depends on the case. So since you're due for one next year when you'll be 53, that tells me that you had the 3-year diary. Only other way that would not be possible is if you had been approved at age 46 and a half or age 46, and you got the 7-year diary, and then your diary would come up at age 53. I hope that makes sense. So if you were allowed at age 46, you get a 7-year diary, and then age 53, the diary come up, and then you coming up for CDR. The only other way that would happen to fit your situation, your scenario, is to be allowed at age 50, which is before 51 and a half. And then 3 years later, you would come up for CDR. And I would say that your chances of getting a longer diary are going to be a little higher because you're older. And that's one of the things that could be a potential for you, main event. So it's a great question. I think it's really important to understand those diaries. And my video talking about that, I'm sure you saw it, main event, um, is important to really piece together. And I believe I provided the links to the policy on the description of that video. So it's going to be helpful to look at that as well to kind of get some clarity. So hope that helps you out. And of course, maybe you know how to get to me. All right. All right. Thanks a lot for that question. Okay. Alex Shanette Ortiz says, hi, it's not fair that SSDI look at age and not health. Well, that's not true. I just have to say it. That's not true. They look at both. They look at age and health, but they're first looking at health and then they look at age. This is the process of every case that goes through SSDI channels and SSI channels. It's called sequential evaluation. If you watch my videos, I talk about it all the time. Sequential evaluation is the 5-step process. First step, step 1, are you engaging in SGA? Are you making over this year $1,550 a month gross pay? If you are not, then you would go to step 2. Step 2 says, do you have a severe impairment? If you have a severe impairment, that's talking about your health. Step 2 is talking about health. All right. If you have a severe impairment, step 3 says, do you have a severe impairment that meets or equal a listing? Again, that's health. So the first step is talking about your work and your earnings. If you meet the earnings requirement, then the next 2 steps are dealing with your health. So they're looking at your health first. Then step 4 is not even dealing with your age. It's talking about your past work. So your past work is whatever you did within the last 5 years before filing or before the time that they're working on the claim. So they're looking at what you could do. What was the most you can do now with the conditions that you have? And they look at your past work and look at what you have with your conditions. They need to make a determination of whether you can go back to your past work. And when they can't do that, then they get to age. So age is the last thing on that's 5-step process. So it's completely fair when you look at it from that perspective, because the definition of Social Security disability, the definition of disability as defined by Social Security is a medically dependent. Let me get right. um, Inability to sustain substantial gainful activity by reason of a medically determinable impairment, which has lasted or which is expected to last no longer or at least 12 months, or is expected to end in death. So they're looking at health and age, but age is the last thing that they're considering. So I just want to drop that on you because there's a lot of misinformation that goes out there, and they hear about age. Oh well, gee, that's not fair. It can't say that my age doesn't matter, or it can't say that my age is keeping me from getting benefits. Well, it has a lot to do with that, but it's really on the back end or later on in the process. Um, and there are younger people that get on SSDI because their conditions are so severe to where it's just not even possible for them to go back to work, regardless of their age. So just know that the misinformation is out there. People are saying, well, the people allow people because based on age. It's not just age. It's always a profile, age, education, and previous work experience in terms of how skilled it was or how unskilled or semi-skilled it was. There's a lot of factors that go into that. All right. Next. Ooh, I see Rude Rabbit. Rude Rabbit. Mm, good to see you. Good to see you. I had to stop and say that because I see you and you supporter. I'm gonna take care of you. So, Rude Rabbit, glad to have you on as always. Absolutely. All right. Bren 18 has a question. Hi, Bren. Here's the question that Bren has: Forced spinal fractures caused by osteoporosis. Mm. I'm 52 and also have severe neuropathy in both feet. Those are serious issues. Those are serious issues. Um, and osteoporosis is pretty severe when it gets to the point where it's causing fractures in any part of the skeletal system. And when you have 4 spinal fractures, um, the question I have on top of that is, if the spinal fractures, are there any other complications from those fractures? Are you having some neurological issues? Are you having even more musculoskeletal issues? Because those are going to be a telltale sign that this is not going to improve. And of course, there's treatment for that, but um, it could go either way. Every case is not the same. Every person who has osteoporosis doesn't have the same amount of um, of impact with those issues. stemming from osteoporosis. So some are much more severe than others. Yours sounds pretty severe. If you haven't applied for disability, I recommend you do, because even if you have severe neuropathy to the point where it's affecting your ability to ambulate or walk, your gait is much more of a struggle. Maybe you can't walk short distances, or you need an assistive device such as a cane, a walker, something along those lines. If you have it that bad, you need to be applying for SSDI without a doubt. All right. Okay. Next, we got John Calamas. John, glad to have you on tonight. Here's John's question. Good evening. Can you use TWP time while waiting for a decision on SSDI? Huh, interesting. Can you use TWP time while waiting for it? No. If you're waiting for an initial decision, there is no TWP because you're not on benefits yet. So if you are waiting for your claim to be decided so that you could get on SSDI, there is no TWP. TWP is not an issue until you are on the rolls for SSDI. And then the idea is, and this is something that I addressed in some recent videos, that first year after your onset, you shouldn't be trying to work. If you are trying to work, my recommendation is don't earn over SGA. Don't even earn over the TWP limit. But if you can, don't work. You're getting benefits. Hopefully that's enough for you to subsist. But we're looking at the year after your onset, not your decision, but onset. So usually the onset will be before the decision. So you were disabled at some point in the past, and then they decide your case, make a decision, and then 1 year after that onset date, when your conditions began, then you would then be looking at the TWP coming into effect. And then you would have 9 months of TWP in a rolling 60-month period. So it's not consecutive months. You can work 1 month over the TWP limit, which is $1,110 a month gross pay this year. And you can work that 1 month over the TWP limit. That will count. That will be 1 month. And then the next 4 months, you're under that amount. And then the month after that, you go over. Okay, that's month 2. So that's how they're counting those months. So to answer your question, that's not something that you're going to even have to deal with if you're applying for SSDI. If you are going through the CDR process, that could play a role in the decision. So I would say this is really extra right now that I'm giving you. So if you are trying to work over TWP while your case is being decided on the CDR level, you're on benefits, but yeah, you're working over above TWP. Well, then there may be some issues with you being able to have the CDR work in your favor if they can determine that your condition has improved significantly to where you can work and maybe work 40 hours a week. So that's a danger zone. If you're trying to stay on CDR, stay on benefits, and you're still working to that degree, and the CDR comes up and they're working on it actively, then that could be a consideration for them to look at your situation, your condition, and make a determination. Hey, maybe he's not as severe as he used to be. So I hope that helped you, John. All right. So Karen has responded. She's given us a little bit more detail. Let's see what she has to say. I'm 56, disabled. My ex-husband died this year at the age of 69. Oh, okay. All right, Karen. This a wrinkle here, because actually Is it the same Karen? It is not. It's a different Karen. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Karen, it's a different Karen. We have two Karens on tonight. All right. Okay, so Karen, welcome, welcome. All right, your question is: I'm 56, disabled. My ex-husband died this year at the age of 69. What I get his full benefit? Well, what your situation is? You are a disabled widow. So, being a disabled widow means that you can apply for benefits on your husband's record. And since he just passed away, and I'm sorry for your loss, I know that must be a struggle just not having him around anymore. So I just want to make sure I speak into that and let you know that my heart goes out to you and praying for you during this time. Um, and I believe this is a good thing that you brought up because I think you may be able to apply for disabled widows benefits. Whatever month that he died, that following month, you are likely eligible for the DWB benefit. And there are certain conditions that you have to meet. One of them is the marriage condition, which is basically saying you need to be married for, I usually just say 10 years, because usually when it comes to some type of benefit where it involves a spouse passing away, they're looking for you to establish that you were married to your spouse for at least 10 years, a minimum of 10 years. DWB, it will help your DWB claim. You may be able to apply for a survivor's benefit. You're also able to apply for the lump sum death benefit of $255. So there's some play here, but I think for you, it's going to be worth it to really explore that disabled widows benefit, because I think that you may be eligible for that. You're still in range to apply for that based on what I'm hearing. I don't know for certain, but I think it may be something that you're still in range to do. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you the link. I put it in the um I put it in the chat so you can have access to it right now. It'll be a great video for you to watch. So that way you can have all the information in one place. So I'm putting it in right now. So go ahead and click on that video, watch that video after this one. And then I think that will really give you some great information on how to go about applying for DWB, Disabled Widows Benefits. All right. Hope that your evening goes well. I hope that blesses you. All right. Nate L is back on. All right, Nate L. That must be one of your kids on the picture. All right. Funny pictures. All right. Must be great to raise that child. All right. Nate L says, if my job and that wasn't sarcasm, I really meant that. All right. So I'm sure your child and your children are great kids. All right. Here's this question. If my job for the last 5 years was under SGA, but enough to qualify for SSDI, how did they evaluate ability to do past relevant work? That's a good question. Right. So if your job was under SGA for 5 years, but enough to qualify for SSDI, which means that you met the eligibility requirement. You have your 20 quarters of coverage, your 20 work credits, that gives you a window of eligibility to be able to apply right now. They're going to evaluate past relevant work based on the work itself, because they're looking at the case and they're looking at your impairments. They're seeing, okay, Nate has a severe impairment and it doesn't meet or equal a listing. So they're going to provide you or provide the case a residual functional capacity form, an RFC, which is the most you can do with your conditions in a 40-hour work week or 8-hour workday. Then they look that, and that's the point where they look at your past relevant work. So that whatever your job is, let's take the Karen. I think it was Karen. Um, yes, it was Karen White. She was working for SUSBS for the Postal Service as a mail carrier. So regardless of whether your job was under SGA, they're still going to look at the job. Now, this also could get into this concept of the part-time work. I don't want to get into the details on that. I'm going to do a video dealing with part-time work, and actually Jonathan Ginsburg, one of the attorneys on the YouTube that we both work together from time to time, he actually has dealt with part-time work as well. So you may want to search his videos for that if that is your case, because part-time work can play a role in being able to determine whether you can actually work full-time. But I don't want to get too deep into that because I don't want to confuse the matter for everyone else. I'll have a video dealing with part-time work at some point down the road. But to answer your question, your past relevant work is really about your abilities and whether your abilities, the functions that you have, will fit within that RFC. So let's say that your RFC limits you from being able to stand for 6 hours. It says this most you can do is 2 hours standing, 6 hours sitting. Let's just take those two. And you're a mail carrier. Well, you can't go back to being a mail carrier regardless of how long you um, are functioning in that capacity, because the RFC has limited your ability to do that work. Because all they need is one function. It's called a function by function comparison. All they need is one function, such as standing. If the RFC says you cannot stand but for 2 hours in an 8-hour day, and your past work requires you to stand for at least 6, then they can't send you back to that past work. And that's how you described it. And then they look at how it is done in the national economy. And if the same holds true, then they won't be able to send you to any past work. So that's how past relevant work plays into the case. So it's not about SGA. It's about your abilities to still perform the work even with the conditions that you have caused by those severe issues. So I hope that makes sense. But great question. All right. Next, I got Tony. It looks like Tony I. Tony I. How you doing, Tony? All right, here's this question. Can I upload my VA medical files online on my initial application or DDS phase? Excellent question. Excellent question. So this is what I always tell people when they are applying and in the application process, actually doing the application. You would be better served in general to wait until the case has been assigned at the DDS. When you file your application, they're really just getting into the non-medical stuff. Now, in some cases, you can send those records in and they may attach them, but when they're going through the application phase, they haven't set up the system fully to be able to receive those records in the system right away. So when you're going through the application process, you fill your application out online, you sign it, you send it off. They start working on the application to determine whether you meet the non-medical rules to go through to the DDS for them to take that application, turn it into a claim, and then start requesting records. And what I usually say is it's better to wait until it gets to the DDS, because when it gets to the DDS, and provided that you are, staying in touch and asking them, hey, I just found out my case was assigned. Can I speak to the examiner because I have some records to submit. And that will be the point where you can ask the examiner, hey, I have extra medical evidence. I have some additional evidence that I'd like to submit. Can I get a barcode so I can fax them in right into my electronic file? That's one of the benefits now of being in an electronic environment in Social Security, because a simple fax machine can get your records into your electronic file, where the examiner is going to be going anyway to search and find out which records have I received, which records can I start looking at, scanning and highlighting and bookmarking, so I can send these records over to the medical consultant, the MC on staff. So I would say in general, it would be great to wait until it gets assigned. But here's another thing that I need to make sure you understand, and this is a helpful thing for everybody else to know. The VA is the VA. What can I say? Um, so um, I'm not sure how it's being handled now, but when I was working and still doing electronic cases, I was still involved in those types of cases, electronic, you know, folders and things like that. Um, there is what's called the Electronic Records Express. What that does is the computers talk to each other from your medical source and SSA. They have this system where once the case um, is processed and then sent to the DDS, the records will automatically go into that file once it gets to the DDS. The VA is a little fickle for whatever reason. I think we may know why. But the thing is, the VA is not always that responsive. It really depends on the actual VA facility. Some VA facilities are very responsive, others are not responsive at all, and then they have everything in between. So it's going to be a challenge to wait for the VA to respond in some cases, depending upon the facility, which is why having your records is going to be a great thing to send them. Um, Again, I recommend waiting until it gets assigned. Technically, you could send it while it is at the Social Security office. Um, but the problem sometimes with that is they really don't have any place to put those records once they receive them. Even if you fax them, they got to fax them into the system as well. And they may not have created the um that part of the electronic folder that receives the records. I'll put it that way. So that doesn't really happen um until once it gets close to going to the DDS. That's why I suggest wait until the case gets there. And that's why it's helpful to just check in maybe every 10 days, make sure, hey, just checking to see if the case has been assigned, wait another 10 days. Hey, just checking to see if I have an examiner yet. If they haven't, okay, great. Can I speak to the examiner? Can I get the examiner's extension? And then you talk to the examiner and say, hey, I have additional medical evidence that I would like to submit for my claim. It'll make it easy because I know you're trying to get to the VA to get those records. I already have my VA records. I can send those to you right now. That will expedite your claim. So that would be my recommendation to you, Tony. Hope that helps you. All right. Let's see what we got here. Main event says, okay, good to know. Thank you. Medical improvement possible. Okay, yeah, that's what I was figuring too. Yeah. Sherry McKay from Alabama. Hi, Sherry. Glad to have you on tonight. All right. Sam has a question. Sam says, I have facial paralysis. I am 54. Can I get disability? Well, it depends on what kind of facial paralysis it is. There's different variations of that. So I don't really know what that means. you could have a CN7 paralysis like Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy is not necessarily debilitating. It's not going to stop you from working. I would say that if you have some paralysis that affects your ability to speak to the point where either you're unable to speak or your speech is so unable to be understood that it's going to affect your ability to hold a job, then that you may be in that pocket. But it's going to be a challenge trying to get um, SSDI based on just facial paralysis. It really depends on what you're talking about. That's what I need to be able to get clarity on. So, um, so I think it's going to be important to really be specific about that. All right, main event. Thank you for the super sticker. That's what I'm talking about. My people. Yes, thank you for keeping me going. Thank you for holding me down. All right, Cancer Free responded. He says, yes, Cancer Free was the first question about his attorney. He says, yes, my attorney sent me a letter stating that Social Security needed my signature for my application. And I called and they told me they didn't need my signature on my application. Oh, he has more. Also, I asked Social Security if they ever heard of my attorney, and they stated no. So you say I would have had to sign a 1696 for anyone to be representing me. So I need to ask them to send me this, right? And he has one more comment. Or two more. Okay. Let's see if I piece this together. Our first paperwork we signed to get them, but I really don't remember. With the agreement about the fee agreement and a representative paper. So I need to ask for my MPP to send me these papers. I talked to Social Security and they didn't need my signature on my application. What was the numbers for the paperwork I missed? Okay, what was the numbers for the paperwork I missed to ask from this mail product? Let me see if I can put this together for your Catch Free. Let me see if I can put this together. So, and this is good information for anyone who is looking to get an attorney for their claim. No attorney is going to represent you until you get into what is called a fee agreement and have an SSA 1696 form completed. The fee agreement is where they determine it's basically a contract that says basically if you are allowed for SSDI, we're going to request SSA to pay us 25% of your back pay, or at the end of this month, actually I think it's November, but right now it's $7,200, which is the maximum. So whichever one is less, that fee agreement is saying you agree to pay Social Security. You agree to pay your attorney based on your Social Security allowance being allowed for benefits, and you're going to pay them out of your back pay. That's what the fee agreement says. You are going to pay your attorney based on the work that they did for you in your claim. Now, the 1696 is the form that says, I am consenting for this attorney to represent me officially. You sign it and your attorney signs it. And then your attorney is able to represent you in your absence on your behalf. That is your representative. It's called a rep payee form, a representative payee form. And this is not a form that is only for attorneys. You can have anybody technically be a representative payee if they can show that they are responsible enough to handle your affairs and also help you with your benefits once you get approved or allowed. So you don't want to have someone who is not good with money being rep payee. You don't want that, because they start spending your money. You signed the agreement saying this person representing you. There may be some things that Social Security can do to offset that, or to reverse or get a different payee. But the point I'm making here is, until that form gets signed by you and your attorney, that attorney is not representing you. They're not. They're not. You're not under contract with them. They may advise you. They may do a little something for you just out of compassion. They may send the forms over to Social Security for you just out of the kindness of their heart. But most attorneys are not going to do that. They don't have that kind of time. And you're not their client, so they're not entitled to do that. I've had a situation where there was a person who had the attorney say, "Well, we're going to mail the forms in for you," and we don't know if that ever happened. So you don't really know that they're not bound to do anything for you until they sign that Rep P form and the fee agreement. So going back to Cancer Free's question, let me see which he says. Really don't remember. You- First paperwork to sign them. Yeah, I would get back with that attorney and ask them if you have signed the 1696 and the fee agreement. Because I'm looking at your question here. Um, and your attorney sent you a letter stating that they needed my signature for my application, and he called and they said they don't need it, likely because you filed the application already and you need their signature to do that. So I don't know what's really going on here. I really don't know. I would ask Social Security, to, why don't you need my signature? Is it because I have signed it already? I would that's the question that you need to ask Social Security. Don't ask your attorney. Ask Social Security. I called and someone told me that Social Security didn't need my application, didn't need my signature for my application. Is it because I already have a signature on my application? That's the question to specifically ask them. You need to be specific. Is it because I've already signed it? If you have already signed it and your attorney is telling you that you need a signature, something's not adding up there. So I was first of all just ask Social Security, do you have a signature on my application? Do you have it? If you filed online, then it is on there. You don't even need to call them because you wouldn't have gotten finished with the application without signing it. You would sign that and you apply that signature on your release form that allows Social Security to request medical records for you. So if you did it online and you completed the application, your signature's on there. You don't need to call. And it puts into question what the attorney's saying about that they need my signature. That's not adding up to me. And then your other question about the 1696, you would have had to sign that 1696 for them to represent you. If that has not happened, they're officially not your representative, and you don't want them to be. Because if they are not representing you, but you're giving them information about you and you're giving them your personally identifiable information, then that attorney has your information and they don't have an agreement, and now you giving that stuff over to them without solidifying your relationship with them as representative. So so my first recommendation is find out for sure if your signature is on your application. Like I said, if you did it online, it's going to be on there. If they have the application, it's on there. Then I would really question whether this attorney is right for you. I'm not going to tell you that they are or not. That's your call. I can't do that for you. You need to determine based on what you've been able to um, figure out from this attorney if this person is really right for you. All right. Fingerprint the guru. Yes, sir. I see you fingerprinting. Good to have you on tonight, as always. All right. Jessica Walden has a follow-up question. She says the first doc, severe spinal stenosis, herniated disc with nerve root compression, paresthesia, neurogenic claudication. Okay. Lumbar radiculopathy. The second doctor, SI joint dysfunction, Philip back syndrome, and retrolisthesis. And then the first doctor recommends a spinal fusion. The second doctor recommends an SI joint fusion. Hmm. Oh, there's more. Oh, and I've had 3 previous back surgeries. Ooh, okay. Mm, this is what I'll say about that. Both doctors are giving some pretty severe conditions. Pretty severe. You have a history of back surgeries, multiple. You also have nerve root compression. So that tells me you're likely going to have, most likely, may have some sciatica. You definitely have some paresthesia. You mentioned that. So you have some issues with some neurological um, function, and also, and that would be that would be reproducible on exam. Your reflexes, your sensation, things like that. Um, if you have that type of conflict between those two doctors, um, well, let me back up and say this. Your original question was about whether the second opinion is worth it, or if your second opinion, if it's going to be considered. Yes, both of those are going to be considered, both of them, and that's going to be a key element in the decision on whether you will be able to go back to past work, because the musculoskeletal listings are probably the hardest ones to meet, the hardest ones, because you have to meet 4 criteria. You have one, nerve root compression, because it's telling me that you had an MRI that dictate um, that determined that you have that. So that's one piece of criteria. You have a diagnosis of these things, and you're likely going to have um, some signs on physical exam. That's number two. Um, one of the real main issue with this is whether you have severe enough function to show that you need some help in the form of a mobility device, assistive device, something along those lines that is going to meet the criteria for that under the musculoskeletal listing. So I'll say they're going to look at both those doctors. They're going to take those opinions, and then the MC is going to make a call on what's really going on, decipher between the two, or see how they both fit. And then the MC is going to say, okay, based on the evidence, this is what my recommendation is. This is what my medical decision is on this claim. So, so they're going to taking those into account for sure. That's for sure. All right. I hope that helped you, Jessica. All right. Next, and we got a number of questions. So I'm gonna scan it ahead. I got Sam who and Jerry Connor who had some comments. We're gonna make those the last ones because we've been on for about an hour and a half. So we're gonna try to bring this in for a landing pretty soon. All right, Jerry Connor. Jerry's a regular. I know Jerry. Good to see you, my friend. He says, I got approved for SSDI. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. And it took my wife off SSI, when she could have worked and made about what I'm getting and staying on SSI. I got approved for SSDI. Okay. And they took my wife off SSI when she could have worked and made about what I'm getting and staying on SSI. Well, here's the thing about SSI. Usually, SSI, you're not going to get much. So probably around like a $9,000, $900, $1,000 in general, unless you have some other circumstances that may require getting a higher limit, a higher amount each month on SSI. But since you were allowed for SSDI, it seems as though, looking at your income and resources, income meaning what you get on the SSDI, and anything else you have, house, cars, jewelry, other resources that you have that can be converted into cash. They said, well, you're over the SSI income and resource. And because of that, you're no longer eligible for SSI, or at least your wife is not eligible for SSI. But I actually have a question here, and that's getting into whether she's on SSI disability or just SSI in general. I guess I see your comment. I thought they would do that though. Yeah, they're gonna look at your income and resources. Once you apply for SSDI, you're allowed, approved. That next step is the case goes back to the field office, the Social Security office, and they do another non-medical review of your eligibility. And in this situation, they're going to look at you and your wife and what you're earning and what income and resources that you do have. And they're going to look and see how this is playing into what you're going to get on SSDI. So she could have worked and made about what you're getting and staying on SSI. Yeah, that's true. That may be true. But it sounds to me that your SSDI is significantly higher than what you would have gotten at SSI. And because of that, you went over that income and resource limit, both you and your wife together combined. So, what I will say is, if your wife is able to work, she can work. And you can keep your SSDI because it doesn't affect you. And she can work as much as she wants to. But that goes back to my question about what she was on SSI for. Was it for disability or for some other reason? And I don't have the details on that, so it's kind of hard to really figure that out. So it's a great question, Jerry. I think it's going to be really helpful to understand why she's on SSI. Oh, she was on disability. Oh, okay. Okay. Again, the income resource limit is still going to be an issue. So she could have worked and made about what you're getting and stayed on SSI. Well, yeah, I think that's going to be the challenge, the income and resources. That's really what it's about. Because she works on SSI disability, and then you're getting SSDI on top of her getting SSI. They're going to say, well, this is likely going to be over your income resource limit, because they also have on file the SSI claim that's the application that you filed. Because when you file for SSDI, talking about you, Jerry, when you filed, you have to also apply for SSI as a way of saying, well, let's see if he's eligible, even if your wife is on SSI disability already. They got to figure out the income resource situation. And that sounds like that's what they did. They looked at your income resources and they said, well, based on what we have here now, since he is allowed or approved for SSDI, that likely took you over the INR limit. And because of that, SSI is no longer in the picture. I would suggest calling the Social Security office to really get this understood based on your situation, so you can get the actual answers. What's up anyway, buddy? Thanks for all your help getting approved. I did everything you and Gizmo told me. Yes, and I'm trying to tell you, Jerry, what I do, what Jonathan does, and Stephanie Joy does, we really want people to get on. But like I said, Jerry, give them a call and get the details. Usually, it would be in your award notice or maybe in another notice related to that. I just wonder why they do that to people. Well, you have to understand that your situation is not necessarily like everybody else's. So there are people who are applying for SSI alone, and maybe they're just by themselves, but they still have to just let's say still has to determine whether your income resources is over. Because keep in mind, SSI is for basically someone who is little to no income, little to no income resources. If you're single and apply for SSI, your resources cannot exceed $2,000. I think that's what it still is. Um, Income and resources combined. And then they also request for you to apply for other resources that are out there, not tied to SSDI or SSI, so you can get all the help you need. So it's not just trying to cut people off at the knees and say, well, you're not entitled to SSI, you're not poor enough. Or it's not also saying that, well, you make too much money, so you shouldn't be getting extra. It's really about being fair across the board for people to know, hey, you got max pay? Oh, come on, man. You got maximum pay. All right. So Jerry, yeah, my recommendation, call them. Call them and get the details. Call them and get the details. Find out the reasons why this happened. If you're not clear about that, I think it's important to get it from the source. All right. But congratulations on getting approved. And you're another testimonial of my work and testimonial to people like Jonathan Ginsburg and Stephanie Joy, who I always recommend. She's really solid. People like that, we're really trying to help. So I'm glad we were able to help you, Jerry. All right, let's keep it moving because we're running short on time. Sam, back with us. I have both facial paralysis and I have trigeminal nerves. Oh yeah. Again, Sam, I don't have all the details. I know you have another comment here. Yeah, facial side paralysis plus injury, speech difficulty. Okay, so if there's a speech difficulty, you may be in the pocket there. But again, I don't have all the details on your case. I'm just getting the trigeminal. I can't say it. Trigeminal nerve, I believe it's trigeminal nerve. Severe pain in my face. There may be something there, but I don't have all the details of your case. So if you want to get that detail, just get in the YODAA case review with me, and we'll make it work. St. Louis Grande has a and dropping palms references. Okay, I see the St. Louis Grande. You came with the Grande question. Okay. Here's the question. Please talk about DI 25020.010 mental limitations and claimant with detailed documentation. Being unable to work with supervisors, accept supervision, and respect supervisor due to PTSD and past sexual assault. Okay, you got a really heavy duty question. Yes. Oh yeah. Yes. Let me pull up this comps reference because I think this is going to be worth pulling up. So 2501 05020. Give me 1 second. All right. So let me share my screen and I'll share with you what this is talking about. Let me pull this up. Where is it? Let's try this again. Give me 1 second. Do it like this. Let's try that. And here we go. All right. We're in business. All right. So we have this prompt reference that St. Louis Grande product. This is dealing with mental limitations. Um, what this policy reference is talking about is there's a difference between exertional and non-exertional limitations. Exertional is about your physical stuff. Non-exertional is about mental. Um, Now, I just want to scroll down a little bit. Here we go. Mental abilities needed for any job. And what St. Louis Grande was talking about is one of these is the ability to sustain an ordinary routine without special supervision. That plays into this in that section. But here's a section that he or she is referring to: responding appropriately to supervision, coworkers, and usual work situations. So the ability to ask simple questions or request assistance, the ability, what Grande brought up, the ability to accept instructions and respond appropriately to criticism from supervisors, and the ability to get along with coworkers or peers without unduly distracting them or exhibiting behavioral extremes. So I'm going to say this beginning with this Palms reference. This Palms reference is a very important one because it really gets into the idea, first of all, that non-exertional limitations, meaning um, anything not involving the 7 exertions. All right. Sitting, standing, walking, lifting, carrying, s- um, pushing, and pulling. Those 7 are exertional. Anything else is a non exertional impairment. So reaching is non exertional. Uh, uh, Stooping is non exertional. Having near vision non exertional. And any mental ability, any mental limitation is a non exertional impairment. All right. So I make sure that we understand that. If it's not those 7, we're talking about non-exertional impairment, and mental abilities is one of them. Now, getting into this specific question, um, if a person is markedly impaired of 4 out of 5 from a doctor and from the MC at the DDS, they say that this person is 4 out of 5 unable to get along with coworkers, unable to accept instructions, respond appropriately to supervisors, or even the public or coworkers. If it's a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5, there's going to be a chance that this person is not going to be able to work. So that's one thing I want to make sure you understand, that we're looking at the ability to do these limitations um, to a market level, and usually you're going to need that 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5 to really be limited in going back to past work. So if a person cannot respond appropriately to supervision, coworkers, and usual work situations, and that is a markedly limited issue, work is not possible. I can bring up a couple other things that would show that very thing, but I want to make sure we understand that this is what is required, as this heading says: mental abilities needed for any job, any job. So if you cannot do that particular function and you're limited markedly, then you can't work. No work is possible. Um, Now, it also gets into mental abilities critical for performing unskilled work. This is going to be important because, again, we see this again: get along with coworkers or peers without unduly distracting them, accepting instructions and responding appropriately to criticism from supervisors, responding appropriately to changes. This is another area that is going to be really critical, especially doing unskilled work. Because if you've done work before, maybe it was like a skilled level job, really high skilled, managing people, and it's very technical. And it said, and the DDS says, well, you can't do that work anymore. They will try to send you back to some unskilled work in some cases. But if your situation does not allow for that to happen because you have an inability to accept instructions and respond appropriately, for instance, there's no work possible. Okay. Um, it even gets into what's needed for semi skilled and skilled work. But I think that you've got the gist of what this Palms reference is talking about. There are certain mental abilities required for work in any capacity for any job. And if you have something in these four domains that will limit you in a 4 out of 5 level, markedly limited level, then there's not going to be work possible in general. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Um, so it's important to realize that what you're talking about here, St. Louis Grande, is or S. Louis Grande. I didn't see that without the T. When you have a situation with PTSD and past sexual assault, that is really going to be an issue in some work situations where you may get triggered, or you may have a memory come back, or you run across somebody that maybe a smell, or maybe seeing, hearing a sound that will take you back there, and it just messes you up to where you cannot function and feel and finish your work day, or maybe even your work week. That can be really significant, and it can prevent work to some degree. Uh, so if you have detailed documentation of this, that should be a lot for the examiner and the MC to work with. Especially if it's detailed, you're getting regular treatment with a psychotherapist or with a psychiatrist. You have a diagnosis. You're getting some treatment. You're getting the treatment. You're consistent with it, and it's detailed. That may be enough for them to make that case. All right. Um, we have next. So great question, Grande. Great question, and thanks for bringing up that Palms reference. I used to be called Mr. Palms because that's where I lived, and I would start quoting stuff. I'm like, "How y'all know this? How you know this?" You read it all day long, it starts thinking. Okay. Um, Tony L says, "Thank you for the advice of getting my VA medical records at the DDS phase only. Will do." That's good man. Good man. Mrs. K, welcome back. Good to see you again. All right, here's her question. Does the grid rules work for me? 54 in a few months. You're still on recon? Wow. Okay. I'm a recon still. I just had an MRI done, and it's worse than a CT scan done in 2022. It's so severe. All the ailments in my back. She has a continuation. My doctor doesn't even know where to begin with the shots for my back. Wow, yeah, that's pretty bad. Um, so the grid rules work for you. I would need to know your education. I would also need to know what type of work you did. Those are the two other elements of the grid that I would need to have to figure out what the grid rules work for you. But in general, if you're about to turn 54, you're likely going to need a sedentary RFC. You're not going to be able to be an allowance on the rules for light. I'm scanning, thinking about those grid rules. Because you're not advanced age yet, so you're still a year and some change away from the magic number. So a light RFC is not going to allow you. You're going to need a sedentary RFC. And based on what I hear you saying, it could be in that ballpark right there for a sedentary RFC. It sounds pretty bad. So maybe if you cannot sustain walking for certain periods of time, you cannot do it for 6 hours in an 8-hour day, it's going to be a sedentary RFC. But again, don't have the details um, of your situation. Uh, but um, but I will say that the sedentary RFC would be what you would need because the rules may work in your favor, but again, I will need to have other details about your profile, your of the age. I don't have your education. I also don't have your previous work experience. So I would need those two. All right. Um, okay, we'll make Trish Wade 22. This will be the last question for tonight. Great questions, everybody. You really came with it. A lot of great stuff. I think there's a lot of information that will help a lot of people watching this video. So, Trish, last question, and welcome to YODAA Live. Here's a question: how does the proof of onset date work with a remote DLI? Okay. Okay. Work DLI in the past case. Right. Her DLI is 2019, MS diagnosed in 2003, retired military 2014. Do symptoms need to be severe then or just started and severe now? Oh, that is an excellent question. I come across this every now and then from people who realize that their window of eligibility has already closed, and they don't even know that this is possible. This is an excellent question for a lot of people to know if they have worked in the past and their eligibility, aka their work credits or quarters of coverage, have already expired and is pushing that window further back into the past. That DLI, the date last insured, the date the window closes, is back into the past now. So even if a person tried to apply for SSDI, there'll be a technical denial because their eligibility is not there anymore. Especially if they're saying, "Well, I'm severe now," but that doesn't matter because the severity didn't start within the window; it started after the window. But you're saying you have had MS since 2003. You retired from military in 2014, and I imagine with MS, it's waxed and waned over the time that you've had it. So maybe it's been some points where you were able to work, able to do things in the military, and then there are points where it was not allowing you to do that because the MS has flared up and it kept you from being able to function. So it just has what's called a waxing and waning effect. So the question is, how does the proof of onset date work with a remote DLI? The key is being able to determine whether your severity started before the DLI expired, before the DLI was over. So if 2019, let's say December 2019, December 31st, December 31st, 2019 was when the DLI expired, when the last date of that window. You have a good evening too, Jerry. And then you were able to establish that you were severe enough to not be able to work before that DLI of December 31st, 2019. That will be enough to get that case open, to get them to work on a case, and to establish severity before the DLI. So when you are putting in an application, you would say, "Hey, my onset date was before the DLI, 2018, earlier in 2019. Whenever that DLI date is, the goal is to set your onset and say, I was unable to work as of January 31st, 2018. Well, that's before the DLI. And you have a year to establish severity from that point, and it's just a matter of getting the records to show it. And then what could happen is that you could get a closed you could get a closed period in some cases. You could also get continuation of benefits from that point. So it depends on the situation. But even if it's November 2019 and the DLI is December 2019, if you can establish that the onset of that condition or those conditions was before the DLI, then that's enough to get that case open and for them to start working and developing for severity for 12 months. So it would start in November and then develop 12 months after that. If they can determine that severity was there in November of 2019, that's enough to get that case open, keep it open, to get them to work it, and then establish an onset date of November 2019. You got inside the window. That's the key behind this. So this is not really known to the public in general, unless you end up having a case. But a lot of people don't know about this DLI in the past cases. But this is a wonderful way for people to understand, hey, even though I'm not eligible for SSDI now, I was in the past and I was disabled back then, so I can still apply for SSDI in that old window, in that previous window, and then establish it and then get benefits. Maybe it's for a short period of time, maybe it's for a closed period, maybe it's for ongoing benefits. That is definitely possible. So great question. Great question. All right. I'm gonna take Mrs. K. She has extension of her question. High school grad, nursing assistant, juvenile staff, spinal stenosis, radiculopathy, DDD, degenerative disc disease, quad cane, severe osteoarthritis in multiple joints. That may be enough to make a case for a sedentary RFC. Um, you have quad cane, nursing assistant, and that was likely probably a light. But again, this brings up another issue, and that is your work transferable to a lighter level of work? So that's another thing. But nursing assistant, juvenile staff, probably not. Let me look at something really quickly. Let's be the last question. Let me look at this real quick, and then um, I'll give you my take on that. Go to my vocational job bank. I'll do you a favor. I'll give you a little peek on what this looks like. Um, just so you can see the type of stuff that we used to work with at the DDS. So this is a vocational job bank. And we would turn to this when we were trying to figure out if a job could be transferred to a lighter level of work. So here's a nurse, uh, an RN, and it was at a medium level. That's what that M stands for. And there are light jobs, 3 light jobs that can still be performed based on this job bank. Now you have a nurse's aide, medium work, SVP of 4, semi-skilled work. These are 3 areas that 3 jobs that may be transferable. But look at what it says here, transferability. So it's transferable to light work, but not transferable to sedentary. So I'm just using this as an example to show you that the DDS is going to be looking at transferability to see whether your job it can be transferable to a lighter level of work. So for a nurse's assistant at um, a juvenile facility, that would require a search. They're going to look at what the job it is in the national economy. Then they're going to look for some other jobs that may be transferable. But I would venture to say that for what it's worth, it's likely that it won't be transferable because sedentary doesn't usually transfer to those jobs. Get back on. Thank you. All right. So that's the idea behind that. To give you an idea of what they would be needing to do to make the case for you to not only meet a grid rule, but also if you don't meet the grid rule, is your job transferable? And if it's not transferable, then there's a chance you may not be able to work and you may be disabled. All right. So she said, I can't bend, stoop, I can't stoop, can't stand or sit long at all. If you cannot stoop, no work is possible. Point blank. If the doctor says you cannot stoop and the MC at the DDS agrees and says, okay, there's no stooping possible, then you cannot work. That's one of the no-brainers in slam dunk cases in Social Security disability. If there's no stooping possible, no work is possible. So I can tell you that right now. If you cannot do it and the MC agrees with you and fills out the RFC and checks none on stooping, you're going to be an allowance. All right. So that is the last question for tonight. And great questions, everybody. Great questions that are going to help a lot of people get better understanding of this process called Social Security disability. So as we take this plane in for a landing, I'm going to bring back the ways in which you can have me work with you in your SSDI claim. The standard bearer is the YODAA case review, where I take 30 minutes and I break down everything in your case and I give you my take percentages on what your chances are of getting Social Security disability insurance. So all you have to do is go to greatbrinkley.org/YODAA case review and go there. Also, I have my book, The 10 Disability Commandments, greatbrinkley.org/disability. The YODAA case review is $97. The book, 10 Disability Commandments, is $17. Can't beat that. Next, the SSA Forums Masterclasses, greatbrinkley.org/masterclasses. The videos that you need, the video masterclasses you need to learn how to fill out the forms that the SSA and DDS are going to send you and fill them out the right way. And I mentioned earlier that I'm this close to releasing the online application masterclass parts 1 and 2. No one is going to have this. Look wherever you want. No one's going to have this because I did the work in getting the screens and take you through the whole process. So stay tuned. It's coming very soon. And then you can always join my channel. Click on join, get some additional perks, and you'll be able to support me in my efforts in my journey to help people like you apply for SSDI and stay on SSDI. Jerry Connor is a great example. He has been following me for a while. He said, I did everything you told me to do. He checked in with Jonathan Ginsburg. He did everything Jonathan told him to do. And guess what? He's on SSDI. So we're trying to tell you this is what it's going to take. You're going to need someone to work with you. And I'm willing to do that. All right. And if you're still on, show some love. There it is. Super thanks. So super thanks. And support my cause. Any $1, $5, $3, $10, whatever you want to give will help me so much in keeping this thing rolling for all of you. All right. So I will take this time out to say thank you for everybody who submitted a question in the chat this evening. It's been great value, and I hope that I gave you great value as well. So having said that, I'm going to sign off for tonight. Thank you for joining me this month. I'll hopefully be back next month. That's the plan. I'll be back next month to have another Q&A. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. All right, about YODAA Live and what I'm doing to help all of you. Take care. God bless. Have a great evening.